local government elections is no rocket science. It's not new in Malaysia, so you need to understand this. Prior to 1960, there were local government elections. Local government elections were only suspended by emergency laws on the alleged confrontation Malaysia was facing with Indonesia during a crisis, whereby the justification given for the suspension of local government elections was that the government was in an emergency situation and it could not risk having elections while it is trying to protect the nation. That was the alleged argument, and a law was passed basically suspending local government elections. So everything was already there before. Then in 1965, the Senator R.T. Naban was chairing a royal commission into looking at the workings of local government, clearly studied everything, looked into everything, and strongly recommended that local government elections be brought back. Sad to say, despite the recommendations of the Royal Commission, everybody did not want to implement local government elections. Until today, it's not been implemented for reasons best known to the government at that time. So what I'm trying to say is not new. So this thing about we need to study and all, the situation is all being studied, it's all being done. In fact, I'll go even further than that. The laws are already on the books. In fact, there is an election of local government Act 1960 already passed. It was suspended. It sets out the procedures and all those questions. It's already there. It just happened to be suspended. So in order to bring back the local government elections, the legal framework is as follows, and I'll give it to you. The first thing you have to do is you have got to amend the Local Government Act of 1976. Why? Because Section 15 of the Local Government Act 1976 says that local government elections, and these are the words, notwithstanding anything to the contrary contained in any written law, all provisions relating to local government elections shall cease to have force or effect. So in other words, it says that any law, the 1960 law and the subsequent many laws on local government elections, will not have any legal effect by virtue of this law that has been passed. Okay, that's when they stop the local government. And then in replacement of that, Section 10 says councillors and mayors are appointed by the state government. And there are some criteria, as Pratik pointed out just now. It's not anybody will come in. The words actually are quite strong. It's quite a high standard if it is practiced in reality. Councillors shall be appointed from persons, the majority of which should be ordinarily resident. I mean, they must be living there. The majority at least. Now, who, in the opinion of the state government, have wide experience in local government affairs. So it means you must have expertise in local government. You must have experience. Now, if you can't fulfill that, then or who have achieved distinction in any profession, commerce or industry. Now, it's not has a degree. It is achieved distinction in the profession or industry. That means when the name is mentioned, that is the expert in this area. That is the stringent criteria. Or you can't fulfill that, then the third criteria is capable of representing your community leaders who can represent voices. So that was the criteria, but it was appointed. So that will have to be amended to say that these if you want to say that these criteria remain, it must be elected by election. Okay, so that's all. There are two amendments. Now the problem, or not problem, is this law, the Local Government Act 1976, is a federal law. It is passed by the federal parliament. Now, each state can choose to accept any part of it if they want to, because you can't force it down the state government's throat. But as far as the abolishment of local government elections and the whole, every state in Malaysia, with the exception of Kuala Lumpur, which is slightly different, I'll get into that in a moment, every state in Peninsular Malaysia has gazetted this law as part of the state law. So the first step is, this has got to be amended. Now, how long does it take to amend this? It's very, very fast. It'll take less than 100 days to amend this. In fact, the amendments are already known. Now, we have the benefit that two states, the state of Selangor and the state of Penang, for years kept saying, we want local government elections. We are all ready to go but the federal laws are holding us back. In fact, one such state, the state of Penang, already prepared the laws, the amendments, but was stopped and had to go to the federal court. And the federal court said, yes, all this is good, but we need to amend this act. And in order to amend this act, you have to get federal parliament to approve it. And of course, that time they were in the opposition. They did not have control of federal parliament. Now, the lawyer who represented the state of Penang in this case to the federal court, fortunately now is the Attorney General of Malaysia. So he would, at the back of his hand, know how to make these amendments immediately and table it before the federal parliament. Having done that, after it has been approved by the federal parliament, that law is going to be taken and shown to all the state governments, and the state governments in the state assembly should also adopt these amendments in relation to the Local Government Act 1976. At the same time, they will all pass what has already been passed before, the Local Government Elections Act. This is 1960, they got 1965, they got a whole variety there, and that's it. You've got the legal framework for local government elections in Malaysia. That may take 3 months, maybe if you need double sitting of parliament, 6 months, okay? But if you need to sit at the state, but actually it can be done faster. I say 100 days is more than enough, but if you need to a little bit more, one is understandable. Now, after having done that, you now go into the implementation. That will take a longer time because you need to invoke the Election Commission. Now the first question is, I don't know whether they're revamping the Election Commission, because judging from the delimitation fiasco before the last general election and the nonsense that was going on, the government might change the whole Election Commission. We don't know, that's up to the government. Having done that, then in terms of preference has to be given to them to draw up roles for local government election. Are you going to use the federal role based on where you stay? Because it's the Petaling Jaya method, it's Petaling Jaya address. If Penang is Penang address. Are you going to use the state roles, or are you going to have a fresh set of roles? So these are things that have to be decided. The roles have to be displayed. There's a process. You may want to say, I want to separate up the area into, say, in Petaling Jaya, section 10, section 11, section 18, one council. Depends on what you want to do. That implementation period will take 12 months. Not more than that. So you're looking at about 15 months, realistically, to be able to hold your local government elections. Now that is only the technical and legal time frame. The political time frame is something different. That is for the government of the day, when they want to actually go ahead and do it from a political perspective. Now, I'm thankful that YB Zuraida Kamarudin is the first minister who actually gave a commitment towards local government elections. Of course, gave a fine frame within 3 years to do that. Now, we're thankful that there is this commitment. Now, the question of whether 3 years is the legal time frame or the political time frame, that is something, in my opinion, the legal time frame can be definitely shorter. But the political time frame is something which has got to be discussed with the public as how you want to roll out. Now, MyPJ has made it very clear, we want the mayors immediately appointed. And this is extremely important for Kuala Lumpur, because Kuala Lumpur has got no councillors. The Capital City Act, the City Kuala Lumpur Act, remove councillors. So there's got one-man show running the whole city. One-man show running the whole city. Supposedly a minister who is supposed to set policy under the federal territories, the policy, general policy for guidance on general matters, not specifically say I approve this or you give that. And that's all the control there is in KL. So the dire need in Kuala Lumpur is extremely serious. That they need a person there who represents the people. And that is why the MyPJ has selected that as far at least the mayors or the Yang Dipertuas, in fact they're asking for 3 states, which is not a problem, immediately be elected. The elections for them go on immediately. And that is what they're asking for. They gave a time frame, actually a year, it's not immediately, they said within a year. Now these people are critical. The mayor exercises executive function, and this is something you need to understand. The authority to sign a check, to award a tender, all these kind of stuff, the important things, the hiring and firing of staff and the day-to-day management is entrusted in one person, not the council. The council is involved in policy decision makings and meetings where they vote and meetings go on. So these are very important people for that roll down change to take place quite fast. So these are the things which must be appreciated. I'll be open to questions later on any weaknesses or criticisms. Or there's actually really none. There's none. It can be done, and in fact, Penang and Selangor ready to go. There's no need to convince the state governments. They have already pledged that they will do it for Selangor and Penang, without a doubt. Kuala Lumpur now, because it is all never under opposition, have given their commitment also, I understand, the MPs, to say they want elections for Kuala Lumpur. But out of the three, Kuala Lumpur is obviously in the most dire emergency state at the moment now, because there's no more representation as far as the executive decision making is concerned for the city of Kuala Lumpur. That's it. I'm open to any questions on any area relating to